He conquers life even in this world, whose mind rests in sameness, since truth is the same and without date, and he
half of us were there at the woods out in the. It sort of felt like the middle of nowhere with an airport nearby. What a great time it was. Thakur said, tells us to go out, get away from everything in your life for a few days. I turned off my cell phone, I think, for the longest period of time that it's been off in several years, which wasn't that long actually. I did check it twice a day while I was out there just to make sure. And quite fortunately, I checked it once, just about 2 minutes after Ushaji had called saying she couldn't find us and she was waiting at the visitor's lodge for someone to come find her. So see, Mother takes care of us. Because I just went and checked on kind of out of the blue. But I was glad to be there, and I wished that I wish there was a way to have bottled that quiet spirit, and I wish that I could take that experience and open it this morning. But I think we're going to shoot a little bit higher even than that. Today, this turned out, I gave this lecture or looked over these scriptures a week ago or so with Ma, and I have to say it was one of my favorite delvings into the scriptures that I've had in a while. And if it's Mother's mood today to make that same experience, it'd be quite wonderful. We're going to talk about enlightenment and love and, of course, all of those things. And I'm going to start, as always, or as most of the time, with a poem from Hafiz. Wonderful lawlessness. Late in winter, my heart is still a rose in bloom. Late in summer, I still have snow-covered peaks on my back where we can all play and slide. At night, I need no candle, not a lamp, for my soul has forever awakened to there being just the reality of light and the wonderful lawlessness of God. Late in winter, I need no heat, for I have entered that infinite fire. Come, build a sled, find a grand hill within my verse. You and I and God should play there more often upon a peak such as Hafiz, that the beloved has carved so well. That notion of playing with God, having your practice be play, is such a beautiful one. And it's one you don't, because of grace, you don't have to wait for. There doesn't have to be a period of drudgery in your practice. There doesn't have to be a period of, that initial feeling of, oh, I just don't have anything, or, you're a child of the Mother. And that goes an awful long way in providing you with everything that you need to have fun with your beloved from the start. To know that you don't have to earn the right, you don't have to worry about being too presumptuous. Do you remember that I think I shared it last time I was down here. I saw such a charming video. The Pope was giving a lecture, and the Pope never gives an informal lecture. So the stage was done all up in its grandiose scheme, and his big giant, much bigger and much more decorated than this chair. And he was standing up at the podium giving his lecture, and somebody's kid, I don't know whose it was, probably about 5 years old, wandered onto the stage from the side, just wandered out onto the stage, and went over and saw an empty chair. It happened to be the Pope's chair, but saw it and went over, and it was bigger than he was, so he did the whole little kid thing of leaning up on it, throwing a leg up onto the chair, and turning around in this big giant chair and putting his arms on the armrest, and sat in the Pope's chair. And the thing that I found charming about it is nobody moved to take him away or to fix the situation. Even the Pope just looked back, smiled. Of course, there was a tittering through the audience. But the kid was sitting there having, just like a child, no awareness that he was sitting in the Pope's chair in front of a million people while he was giving a lecture, And I was so charmed because I knew immediately why Mother had shown that to me, and I knew immediately why, in her world, nobody moved to correct the situation. Because that is the Mother of the universe, and that is our position in this universe. We are that blissful child running along, making all kinds of mistakes, all kinds of faux pas, presuming way beyond our star, sitting in their armchair, thinking we're in charge, thinking we're running the show, and marching around and sitting in furniture way too big to accommodate us. And yet finding ourselves comfortable and blissfully unaware of our lack of everything, our lack of everything. And what a delight that is, and how beautiful that is, and what a sweet, sweet story of grace that allows us to be that, and to be free in that, until we grow up, to become popes ourselves, as it were. To sit comfortably in that chair from a very different perspective, knowing that it's by invitation, and knowing that it's by grace that we came there. So I want to look at several people this morning, and I'm just now realizing I haven't done anything to get ready. Usually I have it all lined up and ready to go. But to look at some people's experiences, realized souls from different traditions, and really more than anything always is just to somehow coax Mother into letting us become aware for a little bit this morning, to let Thakur touch our hearts a little bit with their presence and their coming to be with us. And so that's the real goal this morning. But in an effort to stop everything else that's blocking that, we're going to look at these scriptures. I just, it's because they're not here this morning. The last time I was down here, someone gave me a small book by Eckhart Tolle, who I had read probably about 10 years ago, or listened to a CD, and I didn't even get 10 minutes into it. It wasn't my thing. I didn't like it at all, so I didn't even finish that lecture. But he was at this group that I went to at someone's home, and in the Q&A session, he referred to the book, and then after it was over, gave me a copy of it. It was a summary of the Power of Now, that book by Eckhart Tolle. And he asked me if I would read it, and since it was a very short little thing, and he had asked me, and it came to me unasked, I took it from Mother's hand and said, yeah, I'll read it. So I brought it back here, and I spent 2 days reading it, and I think I mentioned it last time, but I read some really beautiful things in there about him that it encouraged me to go back to DC, and I bought the actual book, the big thick one, and read it, and I got through the introduction, and was quite touched by his experience because it tallied with the scriptures, which is always the first test, and reminded me of several other saints and their experiences. His approach, as you might remember, his aha moment, or his moment of enlightenment, or however you want to refer to it, whatever you think he went through, happened because he was in a deep depression. He was actually, he struggled with depression for many years. And he woke up in the middle of the night, one particular night, and was just dark. Just was feeling like, I can't do this anymore. He could see no purpose in carrying on with life. He could see no motivation for going forward. And one of the things he said to himself was, I can't live with myself anymore. And he said that a couple of times during his thought process when suddenly it struck him how odd that was. He said, what is this? Are there two of me? Who is this me that I can't live with? What's going on with that? And because it happened at such an earnest level, such a sincere level inside, he began to question himself there as he laid there in the room in the dark, trying to figure out which I was true and which I was not true. Because he said, I'm not two people, I'm one person. Why is this experience here? And that contemplation alone, he said, suddenly filled him with this light, and he really didn't have the words to explain what happened, but he says it was sort of something like a giant energy vortex that I just felt myself falling toward. And he said he heard a voice say to him, resist nothing. And he just fell into this light, and he says he lost consciousness of the world, he didn't say the outer world, he just says, I lost consciousness. And just fell into, didn't have words, just fell into a comforting nowhere. And the next morning when he woke up, or came to, this is his description of when he first came to. I was awakened by the chirping of a bird outside the window. I had never heard such a sound before. My eyes were still closed, and I saw the image of a precious diamond. Yes, if a diamond could make a sound, it would be like the chirping of a bird. I opened my eyes. The first light of dawn was filtering through the curtains. Without any thought, I knew that there was infinitely more to light than I realized. That soft luminosity filtering through the curtains was love itself. Tears came into my eyes. I got up and walked around the room. I recognized the room, and yet I knew that I had never truly seen this room before. Everything was fresh. Everything was pristine, as if it had just come into existence. I picked up things, a pencil, an empty bottle, marveling at the beauty and the aliveness of everything. There's another great saint, the Peace Pilgrim, that we talked about before. That American woman who just walked out of her house one day so distraught by the condition of the world and just couldn't stand the difference between her life and the struggles of the world. And she walked out of the house with her apron on, and in the pocket of her apron was a comb, a little writing pad, and a pencil. And she never put anything else in that pocket, never collected anything else. And she walked back and forth across the country for the rest of her life, talking only about peace, talking only about love with God. And she had no plan and no money. She was a sannyasa, a modern sannyasini, just walking out with nothing, but without any religious tradition behind it. No, she was truly just renouncing the world and living for a new ideal. And she had this experience. I was out walking in the early morning. All of a sudden I felt very uplifted, more uplifted than I had ever been. I remember I knew timelessness, spacelessness, and lightness. I did not seem to be walking on the earth, but every flower, every bush, every tree seemed to wear a halo. There was a light emanating around everything, and flecks of gold fell like slanted rain through the air. The most important part of all of this was not the phenomena. The important part was the realization of the oneness that was all creation. When you contemplate, when you hear these experiences, the thing that is amazing and frustrating, beautiful and infuriating about it is that they weren't seeing anything special. They were looking at the same rooms, the same forests, the same meadows that you and I are looking at. They weren't imagining anything more to them than what they were. But they were looking at them without ignorance. They were looking at them without assumption. They were seeing them fresh and new for the first time, as is always the case for us. It brings us back to that whole idea of the moment as God. Every moment is fresh, every moment is pristine, every moment is new. But the mind confounds us with this idea of past and future, its attachments, its memories of things we've done, and it projects those on the moment. So we walk into this room, we don't see the room. We see the memory that we saw this room last week. And we assume everything is the same as it was last week. We don't walk freshly into the room and look around and see that, wow, there's so many things in a different place in here. Nothing's the same, actually. There's different stuff on the counter, the chairs are in a different place. The piano's dirty with dust and leaves from the forest. You know, it's being run off of a motorcycle battery and not plugged into the wall. There's a whole story in this room. That if you walked into here with the assumption that this room was the same way it was the last time you were in it, you missed several stories, several indications of other things. So these people, this is the world as it is seen by someone who knows the beloved, who would look around the room here and see a fresh and new smile on every face and recognize their beloved smiling at them, who would sit in the stillness and recognize the peace of God permeate the room, who would see the light coming through the curtains and understand that it was a phenomena far more than anybody realized, that it was love itself filling the room with light. That's what's held in store for us, or perhaps will come our way today, if someone lets go. So you read these things and understand this is reality. This is why Thakur went into ecstasy 3, 4, 5 times a day. Not because he was seeing something that isn't there, not because he was watching some special play that we couldn't see. It's because we weren't there. We weren't present. We're not here. We're in our minds, wondering about, oh, how long is this guy going to talk today? when is this going to be over? What kind of soup is that I smell? You know, all these things. It's like all these things wandering through our mind. We're not hearing the words that are being said. We're associating them with other thoughts and other lectures and other readings and other ideas and analyzing them and occasionally drifting off and looking at the clock or watching the light, you know, picture of Durga, getting carried off constantly because we can't think of the present. We just bounce back and forth between the past and the future, our attachments and our desires. And very rarely do we look at the present. Vivekananda shares in a very different way, because Vivekananda lived in this space. For these other two saints, it was a momentary thing that they saw, an experience that they had. Vivekananda lived in that world. Vivekananda was always present, always aware. So he talks about it a little bit different. In a lecture called The Open Secret, he says, how wonderful it all is. Look at the human eye. How easily it can be destroyed, and yet the biggest suns exist only because our eyes see them. The world exists because your eyes certify that it exists. Think of that mystery. These poor little eyes. A strong light or a pin can destroy them, and yet the most powerful engines of destruction, the most powerful cataclysms, the most wonderful of existences, millions of suns and stars and moons and earth, all depend on their existence and have to be certified by these two little things. They say, nature, you exist, and we believe that nature exists. And so it is with all of our senses. What is this? Where is weakness? Who is strong? What is great? What is small? What is high and low in this marvelous interdependence of existence, where the smallest atom is necessary for the existence of the whole. Who is great and who is small? It is past finding out. And why? Because none is great and none is small. All things are interpenetrated by that infinite ocean. Their reality is that infinite, and whatever there is on the surface is but that infinite. The tree is infinite, so is everything that you see, everything that you feel. Every grain of sand, every thought, every soul, everything that exists is infinite. Infinite is finite, the finite is infinite. This is our existence. Do you see what it is to live without assuming you know something? You wonder about everything. He just took the eye. Something we hardly ever think about. And just by sitting there and contemplating the eye, look where he took us. Just sitting there asking a few questions and kind of poking at this notion of an eye, an eyeball, and the idea of seeing. Look where he went. That was his experience of God. He understood that he walked through a finite, infinite world where two things are true that can't be true at the same time. And yet the mystery of it all, he says, what is this mystery? What is this wonderful thing? He poked at it and lived in that space. What world do we live in? We read about the magazine, read the title on the magazine. There's no wonder there. We just start thinking of projections. Oh, Cher, yeah, I know Cher. Oh, yeah, look, she's had another facelift. You know, no marveling at what's happening there. That these words, static words on a page, are causing thought in the mind. Are stirring up a memory, which is stirring up feelings, which is taking up time, is making an expression in you and manipulating an emotion. From where? From words. What's a word? It's a thought passed to you by somebody else. To live in that world, this is where these people have come from. Nisargadatta Maharaj, one of my favorites, as you know, he says, from my point of view, everything happens by itself, quite spontaneously. But man imagines that he works for an incentive, toward a goal. He has always a reward in mind and strives for it. We're always doing something, always for a reason, always to manipulate something in the future, always somewhere else. To want nothing and do nothing, that is true creation. To watch the universe emerging and subsiding in one's heart is a wonder. A questioner sitting in the room says, is there no need for effort then? You know? We think that we're indispensable. Oh, if I don't do it, nothing's going to happen. Isn't that the assumption? If I'm not the doer, nothing happens. He says, when effort is needed, effort will appear. When effortless becomes essential, it will assert itself. You need not push life about. Just flow with it. Give yourself completely to the task of the present moment, which is dying now to the now. For living is dying. Without death, life cannot be. I love this idea, this dying to the moment. Like, I sat there wondering about that. What does that mean? You know, he says, again, he says, to live completely, to devote yourself completely to the task of the present moment. And he says, what is that? It's dying now to the now. For living is dying. Without death, life cannot be. So you're constantly watching the moment die and be new. You're letting go constantly, letting it pass away, letting this notion of self, the idea of who you are, letting go of it, letting it die from moment to moment, not clinging to it, not forcing it into a string of past, present, and future, but letting it be a point that's gone. A new point emerges and gone. a new point emerges and is gone. In that, you're free. Your actions of yesterday don't define who you are. Your thoughts of the previous moment don't decide what you are. Let go of them. You're not impure. You're not bound. You're not angry. You're not jealous. You're not old. You're not young. You're not a woman. You're not a man. In this moment, you're free, redefined every moment. That's when Mother says, the grace of God is easily attained, but the grace of your own mind is difficult indeed. You're the one that holds you to your karma. Let go. Don't believe your karma. Be free. It's your insistence that you're not free that prevents you from seeing the divinity of this, of just being. Having grown up a Christian, I thought of several scriptures about this idea of dying while you're still alive, and I'll read them. All three of them are from letters that the Apostle Paul wrote to different churches way back when. In this book that he wrote to Galatia, which I don't know where that is anymore, somewhere in the Mediterranean, he says, I've been crucified with Christ, and it's no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself up for me. He takes on this idea, I don't live for my own reward anymore, which is exactly what Sri Nisargadatta was saying in a very different way. Saying that that all of us go on doing everything for an imagined reward, doing everything to get a result, never just letting something be for its own sake. Letting an act be for its own sake. Pick up a loaf of bread at the grocery store merely for the experience of picking up a loaf of bread. Feeling it. You know that you need it. It's going to happen. The mind knows why it's there in the grocery store. Let the mind carry you through the aisles as it's going to. It's not your mind. It's not your grocery store. It's not your need. It's the need of a body. It's the functioning of a mind. It's the rolling of a wheel of dharma. You just are watching it. Enjoy the show. When you pick up that loaf of bread, laugh at how the plastic crinkles. Wonder why they wrapped it twice. Feel how soft it is. Look at the colors and the flakes inside. Pick it up and put it into the basket and see how it wraps around the eggs. The whole notion, be there, be young again. Stop and pick up the bottle of ketchup and feel how cold it is and move it around. Watch a child sit there while mother's doing her mundane shopping and he's sitting there picking up this, shaking it around and gets tired of that and is looking around and tries to reach something over there on the shelf. Just the miracle of what he's seeing. He understands that he's seeing it for the first time. He doesn't have a world of samskaras that's defining his world as mundane, as ordinary. He still sees the divine. He still experiences and is still wondering, who am I? What is this going on around here? His mundaneness will be taught to him. His lack of wonder will be given to him. The definition of the world around him will be handed to him, pounded into him, as it were. We can be free. We don't have to go there. To the people in Ephesus, he writes this letter. That in reference to your former manner of life, you lay aside that old self, which is being corrupted in accordance with the lusts of deceit, that you can be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and put on the new self, which is in the likeness of God, and has been created in righteousness and holiness of truth. Those letting go of the old way of thinking. Stop assuming all these things, these untrue things about yourself, this string of karmas, these things that you think have defined you. I went to school for this, that means I'm that. No, you're the same person you were before you went to school. Why would going to school change who you are? Put on a beautiful dress or a handsome outfit and you walk down the street. I'm a handsome young man. I'm a beautiful young woman. No. You're the the same person who was washing themselves off in the shower because they stank. You're the same person now you were before. Why are you letting these things that happen in front of you, that are independent of you, change your idea of who you are? Oh, I'm an aching, 80-year-old woman. Oh, I'm an overweight 52-year-old man. No, you're not. You're the same person who was wiggling around in a crib in a 2-year-old body. You're the same person that was terrified of going to school for the first day. Why let this body tell you who you are? If this body was who you were, then you've become a completely new person now than when you were 2. The I doesn't apply. There is no you there then, because there's nothing the same about this body between 2 years old and 52 years old. Why do you allow these things to define what you are, to tell you who you are? Yesterday you yelled at your wife and misbehaved and treated her badly, so today you wake up feeling badly. I'm so selfish, I'm so mean to people. No, you're not. You're the same person who loved your wife and married her. You're the same person who was nice to your wife before you were mean to your wife, or vice versa. You're free. Be free in the moment. This moment is, and in the moment there's no personality, there's no history of karma, there's no bondage of desire, there's no attachment to need. There's only freedom. The moment is perfect and full, just like it is. You define that. Realize that it's not the moment that defines you, that you are the moment, and you define it. Use it. That's the only reason the sages came up with karma anyway. To teach you to use the moment, to free yourself. By using it, well, we're going to get there. He writes another little bit in a letter to the church in Philippia. More than that, I count all things to be loss, in view of the surpassing value of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord, for whom I've suffered the loss of all things, and I count them but rubbish, that I may gain Christ. See, for him, Christ was the ideal. That perfect love, that perfect unselfishness, that perfect being in the present moment always, who walked without a home, who lived without a family because everybody was his family, who served and served and served and served, that freedom of mind, a mind undefined, a mind through which you could view the infinite, the way Thakur talked about that mind, a mind that belonged to the Christ. Who is the Christ? The Christ is Buddha, the Christ is Thakur, the Christ is Krishna. That mind that keeps incarnating itself and coming to visit us, to show us what we are, to give us an example of what it is to be free. Take that mind, throw away the mind you've developed, count it as rubbish in comparison. When you walk out today, if you walk out today, if that moment happens, don't go back to the same life. Don't go back to the same set of assumptions, the same set of assumed responsibilities. Walk out that door knowing that the moment is infinite. You can be anything. You're absolutely free. You can be the greatest husband in the world, all of a sudden. You can be the most loving wife that ever walked the planet, all of a sudden. You can love the people that you look at in a way that you've never understood, all of a sudden. You can be the greatest servant of your neighbor that you've ever dreamed of, all of a sudden. Don't let your actions of yesterday define your idea of who you are, so that you destroy today in assumption, in ignorance. Find that freedom inside. The questioner is sitting with Sri Nisargadatta, and he's asking, what is the cause of this idea of personality, of this personification, of this who I am? Right? This personification of self-limitation in time and space. Maharaj says, that which does not exist cannot have a cause. catch that? See, this personality of yours, you ask, what is the cause of my personality? What is the cause of all my dilemma? What is the cause of all my limitations and restrictions in my existence? And his answer, that which doesn't exist doesn't have a cause. There's no there. You're free. It's you that holds on to this idea. What is a knot in a piece of rope? It's a concept, it's a condition. There's not such thing as a knot. When the knot's untied, where is it? It never was. It was always a rope. The same with you. You are that divinity, ever free, ever pure. You think yourself in a knot. You don't see it as a condition. You see it as a thing. It's not. There's nothing there. Be the rope. Be free. He says, how does personality... So the questioner says, well, yet personality must have a cause. You know, that's our sense. No. I must have a cause. You know, think about that. We do it all the time. What's one of the first things the scripture says about to us? It says, you've never been born. You have never died. Yeah, but what happens when we die? You've never been born and you'll never die. Yeah, but what happens after death? Tell me what happens after death. Dude, you're never going to die. Yeah, but what happens? Right? That's the thing we wonder about the most. Even the most advanced spiritual people posit that question. What happens after death? And there's no answers anywhere. The scriptures never tell us what happens after death. They posit different stories and different ideals. You know, why? Because this moment's never going to end. You might not have a body in it, but this moment never began. This moment's never going to end. Forms are coming and going all the time. What's going to happen after I die? Reframe it. Why are you letting the body define you? Listen to the sages when they tell you this body's going to fall off, and you're still going to be present. You're still going to be in the moment. You're still going to be isness, being. Don't be afraid. There is no fearlessness in perfect love. Yes, but this personality must have a cause. Maharaj, okay. How does personality come into being? By memory. By identifying the present with the past and projecting it into the future. Think of yourself as momentary, without a past, without a future, and your personality dissolves. It's telling you just what we were referring to. This delusion that you're in is because of memory. You won't let go of it. So you project it on the present moment, and you sit here as a man or a woman, as this age or that age, as beautiful and ugly, or as mean or friendly, as sick or healthy, because of memory, because of what you were yesterday. He's saying, forget that idea. You're not your memory. You're not yesterday. There's no such thing as yesterday. You've never experienced a yesterday. You've only remembered a now. Be here now. It's a great title for a book. Oh, it is one. That whole notion, see yourself as momentary. Stop putting yourself on a line that has a beginning and an end. You've never experienced a beginning and an end. You've only experienced a now. This present moment is all there has ever been for you. Where is this idea of a linear you that you're experiencing? It's not your experience. It's a projection. Be free. Watch your thoughts as you watch the street traffic. People come and go. You register them without response. It may not be easy in the beginning, but with some practice you will find that your mind can function on many levels at the same time, and you can be aware of all of them. It is only when you have a vested interest in any particular level that your attention gets caught in it, and you black out the other levels. Even then, work on the blacked out level goes on, outside the field of your consciousness. Do not struggle with your memories and thoughts. Try only to include in your field of attention the other, more important questions, like, who am I? How did I happen to be born? Whence is this universe around me? What is real? What is momentary? No memory will persist if you lose interest in it. It is the emotional link that perpetuates the bondage. You are always seeking pleasure, always avoiding pain, always after happiness and peace. Don't you see that it is your very search for happiness that makes you feel miserable? Try the other way, indifferent to pain and to pleasure, neither asking nor refusing. Give all of your attention to the level on which I am is timelessly present. Soon you will realize that peace and happiness are in your very nature, and it is only seeking them through some particular channel that disturbs you. Avoid the disturbance, that is all. By remembering what I told you, you will achieve everything. I am telling you again, you are the all-pervading, all-transcending reality. Behave accordingly. Think, feel, and act in harmony with the whole, and the actual experience of what I say will dawn upon you in no time. No effort is needed. Have faith and act on it. Please see that I want nothing from you. Aren't those beautiful ideas? Isn't that a wonderful world? To walk out of here knowing that you're not 80 years old, you're not 52 years old, you're not 40 years old. To walk out of here knowing that you're not defined by your performance on the job this week, that you're not defined by the number on your paycheck. Let go of the things that are freaking you out inside. The responsibility to be present, be here. What is there to need right here? You're well fed, you're comfortable, you're here. Be here. Let the peace of this moment be your peace. And it will follow you everywhere. You'll find that your disturbance, your projections are the only things that are giving you trouble. The moment is the only tool you've ever had to work with. And yet how rarely we've worked with it. We've suffered in the past and suffered in the future, regretting what has happened and being afraid of what's coming. We shared that story around the campfire. You said, we have to put pizza in the lecture, it's a rule. That idea of walking down, it was such a fateful day, I've come to realize. I talk about it all the time, and at the time it just seemed like a normal day. I was walking down Polk Street, perfectly happy. I was been in the monastery a year or two. It was groovy. I was like, I'm a monk, I'm taken care of, I'm fed, I'm on my way to realization. My life is brand new and different than it's ever been before. I don't have a job that I have to be at. I don't have to worry about my weekend. I just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And then all of a sudden I smelled pizza. And I was like, pizza. And then I realized I couldn't get a piece of pizza because I had no money. I was like, oh God. So my perfect moment was destroyed. And then I began to think, well, not only do I not have any money, I'm not going to get any money. Oh my God, I live in an Indian monastery. I'm never going to have pizza again. My life is ruined. I'll never be happy. I'm doomed. You know, on that level. You know, the irony of it, we chuckle at it, but that's an insignificant portrayal of what's happening every moment, and that's what he's saying here. Don't you realize your search for happiness is what's making you miserable? That's the example of it. I was walking down the street. I was perfectly fine. I was enjoying the sun and the breeze and being a monk and the direction of life and everything. It was a wonderful thing. And then, you know, What happened? The present moment, what? I pulled up a memory. And I placed that memory in front of my eyes and looked at the moment through that memory and thought, there's no pizza here. So then I had to come up with a plan for getting pizza. And there wasn't one.
So no pizza?
There was no pizza in that plan. There's no way to do it. I didn't have any money. It wasn't going to happen. I was like, oh my God. So suddenly, that happy, settled, content person, alive and joyful to the moment, was suddenly unhappy and needy and depressed because, it wasn't going to happen. Remember the story of that pizza the next time you feel like you need something or you want something or you have to have something or that you're lacking something. Right? Remember that just yesterday that thought hadn't even occurred to you. The next time that you're super depressed and really down, remember that you weren't always that way. At a time when you're thrilled with the events of a moment, remember you weren't always that way. Know that your nature is the happiness you're looking for. Notice that this moment contains the peace that you're searching for. Accept it. Open up to it. God has told you you're forgiven of everything. He's not going to hold anything against you. She's not going to hold anything against you. Why won't you believe that? Why this constant need to apologize? Why this constant need for shame? Why this constant need of anything? This is God, the God that you seek to realize is everywhere present, always perfect. Feel that love. Know that love. And let that love flow through you to become the greatest lover of mankind that has ever been. Suddenly, spontaneously, without a plan. Our happy little questioner says to Maharaj, nobody has suffered more than the saints. Maharaj says, did they tell you? Or do you say so on your own? The essence, this is a great statement right here. The essence of saintliness is total acceptance of the present moment, harmony with things as they happen. A saint does not want things to be different from what they are. He knows that considering all factors, they are unavoidable. He is friendly with the inevitable and therefore does not suffer. Pain he may know, but it does not shatter him. If he can, he does the needful to restore the lost balance, or he lets things take their own course. How do we get there? How do we become saints? To fully accept the moment. Let it be as it is. Accept it. Understand it as perfect. Understand that nothing has ever happened to you that wasn't motivated by God's love for you. And look into that deeply if you can't find that love. Try and see what it is that you are projecting and not understanding. Ah, but my son died. Your son was always going to die. Had you attached to him and become dependent on that for your happiness? Oh, but my daughter just got divorced. What is that to you? Your daughter's alive. She's a manifestation of God himself, herself. Be happy in that. Always see that all things are motivated by love, that your life has been crafted for you to bring you to your highest realization, and accept everything that happens in that light, and never wonder why. Whenever you say, why is God doing this to me? The answer is always because of love. Why did I get that spanking from my father? Because he loved me, wanted the best for me. Why didn't I have a good father? Because God loves you. didn't I get the best of this or that? Because God loves you. Always have that assumption and then grow into understanding it. Keep changing your perspective until it becomes obvious that everything happened because of love. And when you look around effortlessly and understand that, you've become a saint. Suddenly, accidentally, by grace alone. If life is so wonderful, how could this ignorance happen? Maharaj, you want to treat the disease without even having seen the patient. Before you ask about ignorance, why don't you first inquire, who is ignorant? When you say you are ignorant, you do not know that you have imposed the concept of ignorance over the actual state of your thoughts and feelings. Examine them as they occur. Give them your full attention, and you will find that there is nothing like ignorance, only inattention. Give attention to what worries you, that is all. After all, worry is mental pain, and pain is invariably a call for attention. The moment you give that attention, the call for it ceases and the question of ignorance dissolves. Instead of waiting for an answer to your question, find out who is asking the question and what makes him ask it. You will soon find that it is the mind, goaded by fear of pain, that asks the question. And in fear there is memory and anticipation, past and future. Attention brings you back to the present, the now, and the presence in the now is a state ever at hand, but rarely noticed. Back to Peace Pilgrim, she says the same thing. She says, we tend to skim right over the present time. Since this is the only moment that one can live, if you don't live it, you never really get around to living at all. If you live this present moment, you tend not to worry. For me, every moment is a new opportunity to be of service. What a sweet existence that is. Every moment to me is an opportunity to be of service. Beautiful. He who has no enemy and is friendly and compassionate toward all, who is free from the feelings of me and mine, even-minded in pain and pleasure and forbearing, these and other epithets are of like nature, are for him whose one goal in life is moksha. That's from our very own Gita, describing everything that we just read, from people of their own tradition, people who made up a tradition, people who were Christians, people who were Hindus. Truth is one. We're called by many names. In this present moment, there's nothing but peace and harmony. Everything working casually together to bring about that highest realization. To bring your attention back to what you are. To remember that you're free. That you're pure. That you're love itself. And that every moment is a new opportunity to be of service. Something I've learned. Water gets poured through a cloth to collect impurities. Your beloved's name is a mystical weave and pattern, a hidden sieve of effulgence we need to pass through thousands of times. From my constant remembrance of the friend, all I now say is safe to drink. Something that I have learned from the kind, radiant one who drew me from the unfathomable sky's well makes me playful all